Well, I just had a heart-to-heart with my oldest kiddo who informed me that she actually doesn't really enjoy being out here by the bees because it makes her nervous. So apparently this is just a me hobby at this point, which is fine. Who knows, maybe one of the other kids will get interested over time. But we're now 3 hive checks in. So far so good. I did unfortunately squish a few bees when I had to turn the box around on Endeavor. We'll get that cleaned up here in a little bit. They're starting to calm down a little bit, but I wanted to give them a few moments before I got into my 4th hive check of the day, which eventually I'm gonna have to split these up and not try and do all of them in a single afternoon, just because it does take a little bit of time if you really want to do a thorough job. So far I'm seeing good things though, and so next up we're gonna go into the final one of the day, which is the yellow one back there, which is Apollo, and we'll see if she's doing as well as the others are. Alright, so I'm trying to set this up a little bit where you can kind of get a view of what I'm doing here. See how well I can record myself. You won't see my face as much, but hopefully you can still see the business end of everything. So I'm going to take off my extra box. Which all that box is for is to cover the feeder, which is a good gallon feeder right here. And we'll see how much they've consumed. Well, once again, this one is completely empty, which is good. I brought another feeder out for them, but I'm going to go ahead and put a little smoke under here just to hopefully keep them a little more docile. We'll pull this up. See all those bees down on there. See some still on the bottom of the feeder right there. So I like to just kind of take this and we'll set it off to the side for right now. The ones that are there can keep feeding off of it. I got one girl who is really going to town over here. Not keen of me being over here. We'll see if she settles down at all. Not even sure if she's technically this colony. Set my smoker right over here in the hive. Alright, so this is the one that tends to propolize itself a lot. So cracking this open to begin with is always a little bit of a chore. Man, this one girl is just buzzing me like crazy today. And she may be from that other colony that I was just in over there from Endeavor. She may have been a part of that just recognizes me and isn't keen with me being back over in the vicinity. So I'm doing a little bit of personal perfuming over here. And I'm just going to leave my smoker up there beside me, see if that'll help a little bit. Now this one always likes to build burr comb, so I'm always super gentle when I try and loosen this lid, because you don't want to squish bees if you can help it. So we do that to get it loose, and then I'll put, whoop, she's jumping on me. I don't need you to jump on me, I ain't doing nothing. Put a little bit of smoke in there. Give it a second. And we'll see how they're feeling, since I know I had that little bit of an issue with the purple colony. If this one's a little hot, we won't push our luck with the inspection. It is getting a little breezy now, this time of day. Okay, so we'll take a little look in here. See a hive beetle right there, which they're chasing. Gonna kill that guy. And you can see some bees hanging out on the inner cover right there, which They look fine. They seem pretty chill. Lots of propolis on that cover. I'll set this down right here. Sun came out a little bit, so that's good. They're not super active right here. And what I like to do is I like to take out a couple of frames just to give myself some room to work, because otherwise you can roll bees, which is a surefire way to get them a little ticked off at you. And rolling is when you get them caught between frames. But these outer ones tend to have fewer bees on them most of the time. So this J tool helps loosen those up pretty easy. All right, there we go. Wow, seeing, I mean, it's not a lot of bees over on this end, but it's more than normal. So that's good to see. I'll set this frame over here just to have it out of the way. They're building comb on this box, or this frame on this side, which is great. Man, that propolis, these girls just propolize like crazy to stick these boxes together. So that bee glue, they just use like crazy. It's this little black stuff. It's normally on top of the frames. Lots of movement around right there because they're working, passing around the corners to the other sides of the frames as they work to build out comb. Lots of comb with honey on it right there. So we're not likely to find the queen on this one. Just fine, we don't need to see her here. Just gonna set this other frame down really gently over here. All right, so now we got room. See lots of good comb being built out right there. I see some honey that they're starting to cap toward the top. Pull this way. Okay, this is another frame that has lots of honey on top. I don't see a whole lot of brood. There's just lots of honey. So no reason really to pull that one out right now. We're just gonna see if we can move it without hurting one of these bees over here. Okay. So then we get more toward the interior. I see some honey at the top, but this is where we're starting to get into the brood chamber, assuming that they still have brood up toward the top in some capacity. I normally try and go light on the smoke if I'm able, but this one just had a lot of bees hanging out up here, and I don't want to catch one with my finger. You can kind of hear it sometimes when you do. Okay, so I need a good grip on here. It's not as heavy as I thought it was going to be. Okay, set that down for a sec. So mostly honey. They've kind of cleared out. There's a little bit of capped brood in here still. So seem to be mostly clearing this out up here for the purpose of putting honey in it, which is normal, because normally the bottom box is what you would call the brood chamber, and then this upper box is what you would call the food chamber, and then you have a honey super up top, which I don't have on here yet because these colonies are new. And so you don't really need a honey super until the bees can actually produce honey. Okay, this one I gotta be careful with because I can tell from moving this that they have connected this frame to a frame in the bottom. What we don't want is to accidentally lift two frames at once. That's when an accident happens. Whew. Okay, so pull that up and you'll see what I'm talking about here in just a minute. So you can see there that comb that's on the bottom of the frame. Just kind of makes it a little tricky to work with. We do have lots of really good capped brood right there though. So the queen has been up here working. I see lots of honeycomb and more capped brood on that frame right next to it. I will say some of these frames are building a little fat, which is not uncommon with honey. Like if you were to look super high up on the frame, you see the capped brood is that brown beige. That white up top is actually capped honey, which they do that. They like to keep food close to the brood so they can feed them easy, which is fine. What I don't want, oops, sorry, felt the buzz on that one, is I don't want all this stuff here making it really hard to work in the future. So hopefully, yeah, good, that's showing up on the camera. We're just gonna scrape off some of this extra burr comb that they're putting in between frames. There we go. Okay. Good, good, good. Okay, so lots of honey, lots of brood, and since there's brood there, that means I need to be careful. I didn't see my queen here, but it's possible she could be in the vicinity since that's the brood chamber. And we don't want to squish her because she's, of course, one of the most important bees in the hive. Still got a bee over here buzzing me a little bit. Now sometimes there's a bit of nectar in this comb that you scrape off, and what I like to do is put it down here so that the bees that made it at the entrance can start cleaning that off, and then I'll usually collect the comb and keep that for something else. Alright, so I'm not gonna try and pull up the next one necessarily since I know what's in here. But what I do want to see is what they're doing in terms of building this out. And they are doing a pretty good job. So this one, man, this propolis is really getting all over my J-hook. All right, so, goodness, this one feels like it's connected down below too. Which is not a surprise with this hive. There we go. Okay, lots of beautiful white-capped honey. Now this one, they've been building it out kind of weird. Like it's got thick comb on one side, which is great, but really they've kind of warped the foundation on the other side. You can see the plastic sticking out a little bit, maybe right here. So it makes it a little harder to work. So this will be a frame that I'll probably need to reset somewhere down the line, because the reason that it was actually stuck wasn't because of a frame down below, it was because of some of the honey comb that they've built right next to it. That said, Actually, you know what? Kinda, well, I'll leave it for now. At some point I may come back and just try and move that one toward the outside. Man, I still got this one little bee that doesn't like me being over here. Just keeps wanting to hang out. All right, this will probably be the last one I check. I skipped one and then went to this one on the outside, and they're still doing a good job building out wax, which is what we need to see. And they're even starting on that very outside frame. All right. Well, that's as much as we're gonna do on this top box. I didn't see any queen cells. I saw some capped brood, but not a crazy amount, which means that just like the purple hive Endeavor, looks like when the larva or the capped brood that was in the upper box hatched out. Oop. Give that a minute. I could hear. It's funny because you can actually hear if you get a bee kind of pinched, and it's best to stop for a moment when that happens so that the bees don't get freaked out too much. And I try and move these frames super slowly. Just so that that doesn't happen. I try not to move them all at once most of the time. Some of these girls just are kind of stubborn and don't want to get out of the way with where these frames touch. Okay, good. And then these girls are kind of festooning. Festooning is when they kind of hold on to each other, like holding hands. But these bees on the outside of the box, they were on these frames that I had resting off to the side. They were festooning a little bit, which is always funny to watch. Okay, I'm a little snug out here. So I'm gonna move these frames a little bit. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. All right. Got those back in. And try and give a little bit of space out here. And since all is well for the most part right there, actually, I've got some extra comb that they've been building up here, and it's really not a big deal, except that it's more likely that you'll squish bees when you put this inner cover back on, which I definitely don't want to happen. So they'll build it right back before next time, so this is really just kind of a pain to have to clean it off. Especially since there's always a chance you can squish a bee in the process. Like her, she's stuck on that wax. They don't like you taking their wax, which makes sense because this wax is like gold to them. It takes 7 times the calories to make wax as it does anything else. So, all right, well, they're hanging around the outside where the propolis is, so that's not good. I need them off of there. Don't want to squish them. So rather than just try and push them out of the way. So we'll do that. Then we're going to take this and gently, ever so gently, kind of rock it. That gives them a minute to kind of move out of the way, like so. Okay, got a little hive beetle right there. Kill him. Got it. All right, so that's our top box. Looks like I'm still recording. I'm gonna go ahead and put the lid on for a minute, because next up I need to move this top box over here to another box that I have set up behind me, just to get it out of the way so I can spot check that bottom box. And it's pretty heavy, so that's definitely a new acquired experience here recently. Plus the fact that these girls like to seal everything nice and tight. So I go around the outside very carefully, try and break the seal on this box. And then once I do that, just kind of do this, we'll lift it a little bit, put a few puffs of smoke in there. And I try not to set it down immediately, because it is really easy to squish them. And I also need to make sure I remember the direction that I lift this box. All right, so came to the left. We'll bring it right back over. All right. So these girls, we try and be gentle because they're not used to seeing the light of day. Hopefully you can still see the box down there. A little bit of extra comb in between right here. Not too bad. Just trying to clear out a little bit of that wax that may cause me to squish some bees. A little bit right here. Okay. All right, well, let's take a look in here then. Again, we'll start with these outer frames because there are fewer bees usually, a little less likely to roll and squish any of them. Not doing anything on this outer one. Not really doing anything on this one either, which some of these I'd added when I moved some frames up. So they don't have a whole lot of comb on them. This one's starting to build out comb. They're putting honey in it, which is the outside, so that's to be expected. They're not really doing anything too funny down on the bottom, so that's fine. Okay, they got a little flustered by something up here, so I'm gonna give them a little bit of smoke. So this one is honey. This one is a little more central to the brood chamber, so I want to check it. And since these girls are starting to get a little more active, because I need them off this frame so I can grab it. This one's gonna be a little heavy. Ooh-wee. Man. So there is basically no brood on here. There's some brood on the other side, so that's kind of the start of the brood chamber. But this sucker is full of honey. All of that is capped honey that they're working on, which means this next frame will probably be my food frame. Got a few girls checking me out over here. Just for good measure, since I've been in this box for a little bit, I'll put some smoke on myself. Maybe I'll make them a little less curious now that my hands are getting a bit sticky. Okay, so this one I could already tell is a brood frame. Whoop, startled them a little bit. I heard them move a little bit. That's where they're hanging out right now. Which, good bee coverage, but all right, get out of the way. So I just want to see what her laying pattern is right now. I also want to be very careful since I know that there's brood on this frame. Oh yeah, she's still doing a good job. Ooh, look at all that brood. Still don't see any supersedure cells. I don't see any emergency queen cells. I see a little bit of drone brood, but I see quite a bit of capped brood on there. So she's doing a good job. I can see brood on the next frame as well. And we're getting a little late in the day here. So I know to a certain degree they're gonna get a little annoyed that I'm in here. So I'm not gonna do as much lifting for this next little bit. I'm just gonna do kind of a little peek. Okay, so I see honey in here and brood. I just see mostly honey right here. And then we get to the outside and they're building some comb and they're putting honey in it. All right, well, they're doing what they should be. I don't see any signs of concern at this point. And since these girls are buzzing me a little bit more than the early colonies did, Gonna perfume myself a little bit, and we're gonna push these back. I still haven't seen the queens in either of my big colonies, but that's not really the end of the world because we know she's there just from the fact that we can consistently see the brood. Okay, come on girls, get out of the way. Not trying to not trying to get you. Move out of the way. Slow and steady. Okay. And then we'll bring these three back in. And man, there is all kinds of propolis gunking up this box. These girls are goofy with the propolis. All right. Well, hopefully I got enough room in there. Get these dropped back in. Eventually, if they, so they're building on this side of the box more with that new comb. And eventually, if they get that built out, then I'll have to come back in and probably move some frames around and see if I can get them to fill out the frames on this end of the box, because we want them using every bit of available space, because as long as they feel like they have space, then they're not likely to swarm. All right. So, last but not least, I really need these girls to go back inside. Because I have another box that I need to bring and sit back on there. Now that is probably one of the trickiest parts of this process, because those girls can get caught between boxes pretty easy. And I only recently really had to start dealing with that. And so I'm sure there's got to be an art to getting them on without squishing many bees. Maybe that's the next thing I'll watch on YouTube. All right. And then the last thing, there's a lot of them in here, but I need them to still have nutrition. There is an event or a vent here for them to get out of. But what I'm going to do is get this feeder on here, which they're a little outside the circle, so I gotta be a little more careful, make sure I don't squish them. Get out of the way, guys. You going in or out? All right. Those of you who are left, you can get out right here. You girls. So you see I got bees on the inside of this cover. I'm just gonna shake most of them because they're mostly nurse bees, so they can't really fly. I don't want a bunch of them to have to crawl back out. So there we go. Cover's back on. I'm gonna put the straps back across, and that's another round of hive checks complete.